Welcome to People Doing Good for Others. Welcome to People Doing Good for Others, where we honor and celebrate and hold in the light those who truly make significant contributions in our communities. I'm Gary York, and I'm grateful to be with you today, and we thank you for choosing a few minutes of your life to learn about new people who are doing incredibly great things. I want to thank Wilkes Communications, RiverStreet Productions, and 100.9 WIFM for this honor. Jimmy Flythe, I've known him for 15 years since coming to WIFM in Elkin. I know him to be a person of significant character and values, a Clemson graduate, lives in Winston-Salem, involved in all the good community things that we know that we'll always, when I'm around a chamber function, Jimmy will be there, and a lot of times we'll be making the Duke Energy Award to the prominent person who's doing great things in communities. So it's good to have you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Gary.
What an
Glad
honor.
to be here.
We talked about being at Clemson and being an intern at Duke Energy,
Sure.
and one thing led to another. Share that with us.
Sure, yeah. Well, I had an uncle that worked for Duke Energy, and back in that time, in the mid-'80s really, he was a district manager in the Clemson area. And so I had an interest in working with Duke Energy and had done a lot of projects, through science class and that sort of thing on production of electricity and that sort of thing. And so I went to Clemson University to study electrical engineering and had an opportunity to do a summer job. Worked as a summer intern in Anderson, South Carolina while I was in school at Clemson. But it was a summer internship. And it was a great experience. Got a lot of experience learning what Duke Energy is all about and kind of how that worked. And so finished my senior year and did a few applications and applied for a job at Duke Energy and had an opportunity to interview in Charlotte, and then got a job offer. And surprisingly, Pat McCrory, our former governor, was in staffing at Duke Energy at the time. And my letter to offer me a job came from Pat McCrory. So that was in 1985.
Yeah.
And so I went to work in Salisbury as an electrical engineer for Duke Energy.
And you also did an MBA quickly out of Clemson too,
Sure,
right?
I did, yeah. So Duke Energy had a great program, still do, offer tuition reimbursement if you're, if it's an applicable type of career move. And so I started actually working on my MBA. I started work in June and then started taking classes in August. And got my MBA from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. So it was a really good evening program, 2 nights a week. We met for 3 hours. Usually taking 2 classes. So,
Right.
took several years to get that knocked out, but finally completed that.
Good.
And in the middle of that too, I gained my professional engineering license as well. So, busy few years getting started in my career.
Let's quickly move through those years before you became the leader in the western part of government relations and community
Sure.
involvement, if you will.
Yeah, so I started as an electrical engineer and had a lot of different jobs, kind of moved up fairly quickly into supervisory roles, supervising engineers that do just initial customer, just new connections, that sort of thing, and got involved a little bit in the reliability and integrity. Part of my career, at one point, I was actually managed one of our operations centers where all the linemen in our Rural Hall operations
Like we
center.
have in Jonesville,
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
Really?
It was the Rural Hall Operations Center just
yeah.
outside of Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
So I managed that for a year. So it was a good opportunity to get some great experience. Had a couple of roles kind of in scheduling our work and resource development, or not resource development, but resource analyst. And eventually became the superintendent of engineering construction operations for the region, so the Northwest zone. Did that for a little bit of time and had an opportunity in my career to lead an engineering project in I guess it was the early 2000s, maybe 1999 to about 2001, where we switched to using our engineering software, where our engineers used to go out and meet with customers. They would hand draw and hand enter their estimates of materials and that sort of thing. And so we bought into some software where they could actually do it sort of a CAD type drawing, and engineers started carrying laptops in the field and that sort of thing. So the early days of technology at that point, but really kind of moved along quickly. And then
so you've had this this knowledge growth that leads up to where we are now. Let's talk about, what do you do, Jimmy?
Sure, yeah. So my role is local government community relations. So I maintain Duke Energy's relationships with town managers, city managers, county managers, our local elected officials, that sort of thing. So somebody's unhappy about how we cut some trees, I'll often get a call from a local elected official or somebody, asking what we can do and helping to explain things, and so deal with some of that. And then philanthropy, so all of the Duke Energy philanthropic requests that come through the Duke Energy Foundation in my county. So my counties are Forsyth, Stokes, Surrey, Yadkin, and Wilkes is kind of my footprint.
Okay.
And so any request to the foundation.
So like a grant, somebody needs to
Sure, yeah.
needs a community
Right,
something.
Yeah. Community colleges, we provided a lot of grants to the community colleges. One of our focus areas is on education and workforce development. So we've done a lot of grants to kind of foster that. And part of it too is trying to help encourage a manufacturing type environment. Duke Energy sells a lot of electricity to manufacturers, so it's a good industry. It creates a lot of jobs and great for the economy and investment, and helps raise the tax base. So it's it's all related. So we really like and appreciate all our collaboration with local officials as well as local businesses and industry as well.
It seems it's always a highlight when we have a chamber annual meeting, and the Duke Energy Award is there's an essence to that of how special that is. Tell us, what would be behind the Duke Energy Award?
Yeah.
Just give us a little idea,
Sure.
will you, Jim?
Yeah, thank you, Gary. And that award kind of stemmed in 2004, and back then it was Duke Power. We celebrated our 100-year anniversary. So Duke Energy, or Duke Power here in the Carolinas, started in 1904. And so put together a committee that was looking for a way to kind of signify and celebrate that milestone, that huge milestone. And so somebody came up with the idea, let's present an award at local communities, and kind of came up to folks like myself and to kind of find what would be the best venue to do that. And typically it's been Chamber of Commerce. There are a few close areas that we don't do it through a chamber, but in my footprint it's all through the Chamber of Commerce. And if you'll remember, many years ago, Duke Energy, one of our logos, or Duke Power, had sort of a bottle cap kind of figure, and it said citizenship and service, and that was kind of our focus, and still is today. But that's not part of the logo anymore, but that was where the name came up. So it's the Duke Energy Citizenship and Service Award. So we've been presenting that award since 2004, and it's always a real highlight. It is. And we leave it up to the institution, or usually the Chamber of Commerce, to put together a committee. I don't vote. I kind of help, make sure it goes through, but I don't have a say in who gets selected. But so it's up to that local chamber or that local community to determine who the recipient is. And it varies. It was made to be very flexible. In some locations, it goes to an individual that in that community that's done a lot of volunteerism and shown that they really want to be a part of the community, right, and get engaged. And in some cases, it goes to an organization. I know in Mount Airy, we present it to a nonprofit because they already had some citizenship awards that they were doing. So there we highlight a nonprofit each year. And in some cases, it goes to a business that just has a great environment to promote just volunteerism and civic responsibility.
If something comes up in an emergency and we need some wonderful contributors, some quick labor, some guys and ladies that can pull some things together, we just call the Duke office and bam, it's fixed. Tell us how does that work, that tradition and legacy of the Duke Energy presence, if you will?
Sure. Well, it's something that our company has had, dating back to the beginnings of the company, to be involved and engaged in our communities. And so, our operations personnel, their primary focus is to keep your lights on and connect new customers and do that when customers need it and be responsive to that. But they all like to volunteer, and the company has, we've got a great volunteer program. We're encourages employees to volunteer. They can kind of log their hours of volunteerism either as an individual, and then over time turn those hours of volunteerism into a grant. So I think after they volunteer up to 10 hours, they can create a $100 grant that they can give to other employees. We also,
Really?
our foundation's got a matching gifts program to where employees give to local charities. Their gifts can be matched through the foundation. And then there's a volunteer aspect of that. So if employees want to create a volunteer project, if they're active within their community, sometimes through a town, or I know in Elkin, for example, we've done some projects years ago in the municipal park. Jerry Stroud, who we both know really well, retired a few years ago, really had a strong involvement in the community.
He was the go-to guy.
And Kent Sudworth replaced him, and Kent's very good. Anytime I call and need something, Kent steps up, and the same is true in all of our operations centers. So, but the company tries to encourage that, and we also allow employees within their benefits. You get 10 hours a year, either for education. So if you want to go see a child or a grandchild participate in an activity, you can use that time, but you can also use it to volunteer. So you can use that time to set aside if you want to go volunteer in a community. So we'll try to really encourage our employees to get involved. That's difficult to do because they're really busy trying to keep the lights on.
The Elkin Rescue Squad, one of the significant needs for labor or for help the last day is signs that we have on holes. And your guys always, they know that call's coming. Good. And they get ready, and so they're all over Cedar Brook the night before, and it's just a rich tradition with us. And I want to thank you for being there for us.
We appreciate that recognition.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, I think that, everybody has a giving heart and wants to do it, and hopefully, whatever their life situation is, they get an opportunity to do that.
Now, I was interested this morning. You were a little bit in a time constraint about being here at a certain time, and you were doing a community enhancement this morning. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure. I'm serving in Winston-Salem. I serve on the campaign committee to raise money for the Callidium Museum, which is getting ready to move downtown Winston-Salem. It's a great project, and so we had a breakfast meeting this morning to sort of get an update on where that project is, and the fundraising's coming along really well, and the county's committed a pretty sizable, Forsyth County, a pretty sizable amount of money to help actually turn the old sheriff's building downtown. They're going to actually tear it down and use that spot right downtown Winston-Salem for a brand new, I think it'll be a 4-story building. It's going to be a really cool project, so it'll be exciting to see that kick off. So I've served on that committee for a little while as part of
How about a day, just walk through a day. Just think of a day that's happened lately and where you might go and what you might do. Just give us some ideas of what does Jimmy do?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing. There's not a typical day. It's pretty rare. Every day is different. You never know what phone calls are going to ring. But I serve on a lot of committees. This year I'm chairing the Wilkes County Chamber of Commerce Board. So some days I've got a Chamber of Commerce Board meeting or helping to answer questions or deal with a situation with that. Last year I was chair of the Winston-Salem Chamber of Commerce Board as well. And I've been involved in economic development boards over the years. And I've just became a trustee on the Forsyth County board, or Forsyth Tech Community College Board of Trustees.
Are you really?
So I'm pretty well engaged, and it's good for Duke Energy for me to be there. I get to hear and meet with a lot of community leaders and key leaders, and hear if there's any concerns, and share some of the great things that Duke Energy is doing, and how we keep your lights on, and there's always some
a lot more than just keeping the lights on.
It is, yeah. So and so a typical day for me, the phone might ring and I've got somebody that's upset. Yesterday, for example, we've got email that folks can send in questions related to our power plants, and so somebody wanted to know about our Blues Creek Steam Station up in Stokes County. Had a question about we're in the process of running gas lines to that plant, so it'll co-fire between coal and natural gas, and so they wanted to know, would we still use the lake for cooling water? So I did a little bit of digging and thought I knew the answer, but confirmed that with the right officials, and was able to send him an update to provide that. So I feel like I'm a mile wide and an inch deep on a lot of different topics.
Jimmy Flythe, let's talk about Duke. It's the biggest, and it's the biggest in the country now, and just some of the ins and outs about the size of a company that
Sure.
big.
Yeah. So Duke Energy, by the number of customers we serve, is the largest electric utility in the United States. We serve more than 7 million customers, and so
7 million.
7 million, and that's direct meters, and it really that's serving more than 25 million people depend on the energy that we produce and deliver. 365. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And so we've got operations in the Midwest through mergers. So, my legacy with Duke is starting to work with Duke Power, which most of us know is sort of the Piedmont Carolinas, north of upstate South Carolina and through the Piedmont of North Carolina. And through several mergers over the years, we now have operations in the Midwest, so in the Cincinnati and northern Kentucky metropolitan area, and then about the lower 2/3 of the state of Indiana. That came through a merger with Synergy, probably, I think that was in 2006. Don't hold me to these dates, but then about 6 years ago, we merged with Progress Energy, which was the old Carolina Power and Light, sort of eastern North Carolina, and they had bought a utility down in Florida. So we have operations in Florida now too. So we've got the Midwest, the Carolinas, and the Florida regions. And then we also purchased Piedmont Natural Gas a couple of years ago, right in our backyard, and that's been a good fit. And they're pretty much operated as a wholly owned subsidiary, but we still interact pretty closely with our counterparts there. And with that came some operations for natural gas customers in Nashville, Tennessee. So it's a pretty big footprint, and that's just our regulated, kind of utilities. We've also got a big renewable energy focus, and so we own, I think it's more than $3 billion of renewable energy assets. So wind farms, solar
Tell
farms.
us about that solar farm, right?
Yeah. So solar's gotten to be really, really big. So the renewable energy company, that's an unregulated part of the business, and so we've got wind farms and solar plants all over the United States. A lot in Texas, the Midwest, I think Wyoming, Montana, even a wind farm I think in Pennsylvania. And then the solar, we own several, unregulated solar farms across the United States. But the surprising thing with that here in North Carolina, we're doing a lot more regulated solar projects as well that are part of our generation mix to provide energy.
You're required to buy so much alternative.
So there's a lot we're required to buy, and then there are a lot of projects we're doing. I think it was I can't remember, House Bill 589 in 2017 passed and kind of changed some of the rules, but that created solar rebates. So we provide rebates to customers, and those have been really popular with the residential and commercial customers. And we offer some rebates for nonprofits as well. And we still have some capacity there. And each year they kind of reset, and we've got a new offering. But those programs and the way our regulatory environment was set up, requiring Duke Energy to purchase power from solar producers, made North Carolina the second largest, the state's got the second largest amount of solar energy installed. That really surprises everybody. You think of states like Arizona and Florida and Nevada. California is number one, and they're way out in front of everybody else, but we're pretty far ahead of number 3 as well. But we've got a lot of solar energy installed here in the Carolinas. The other thing that's great about the Carolinas is Duke Energy, through our legacy, both Duke Energy Carolinas, or the old Duke Power, and Progress Energy. We've got a lot of nuclear plants here in North and South Carolina. So more than about half of our energy comes from carbon-free source of nuclear power. And that, combined with the solar and hydroelectric, which is where Duke Energy got its start, was hydroelectric production of electricity. All that, more than half of our energy.
Does that mean dams? Is that what? Water?
Damming up a river. So the company got its start in 1904, damming up the Catawba River down south of Charlotte, and created Lake Wylie. That was the beginnings of the company and producing electricity. And then James Buchanan Duke, Buck Duke, who was a tobacco tycoon and started investing in textile plants. Was the investor. So William States Lee and Dr. Gil Wylie, had the idea of damming up the river, and they convinced Duke to be the big investor, and eventually the company took his name. And
that's Duke University money type?
Yep, the same Duke, same James Buchanan Duke that Duke University was named after, and as well as the Duke Endowment. He created the Duke Endowment, which is totally separate from Duke Energy, our Duke Energy Foundation. But he was a very philanthropic guy and very innovative and invested. So that was kind of the starts of the company back in 1904.
Wow, Jimmy Flythe. So let's do your counties again.
So my counties that I'm directly responsible for are Forsyth, Stokes, Surrey, Yadkin, and Wilkes County.
Okay.
And then I'm the director for Western North Carolina. So the folks that do the same thing I do in other states report to me. In other counties in the western part of the state as well. But for the most part, they kind of run their areas just like I do, and they're really a counterpart. But I have a little bit of responsibility just to approve their not their timesheets, but their expense reports and just some of their activities. And I'm kind of a resource for them if they have questions about something. I use them as well. So we rely on each
thinking
other.
right now about we're just flipping all the way back to the other side that. There's a lineman school at Forsyth Tech.
Yeah.
And we are training Duke linemen at Forsyth Tech. I know several instructors, the guys that have retired, and they go down there and they become college teachers. And can you touch on that a minute?
Sure, yeah, that's a kind of an interesting story. Dr. Gary Green, who just retired as president of Forsyth Tech, came up to me. It was one of those things after presenting the Duke Energy Citizenship Service Award at the Winston-Salem Chamber annual meeting. I can't recall how many years ago, but Gary came up to me and said, I've been thinking about the idea of creating a lineman school and wanted to talk to you about that. And so, one thing led to another, and we started talking, and Forsyth Tech decided to create the lineman school. I think they call it their lineman academy.
Lineman Academy.
They train. I think they've got room for 24 students, and it's a 9-week program, and so they do about 5 schools a year. And I think just about everybody that completes that program gets a job offer.
Right.
Maybe not at Duke Energy, but a contractor, and they're folks that have learned about that program and come from far away. There's several other community colleges in North Carolina that offer a similar program, but we're seeing at Duke Energy a lot. We've got a lot of new young linemen, and seeing those folks, our folks that have been with us for a long time, retiring.
Yeah.
And so we've got a need to kind of fill that pipeline up and keep strong candidates. And so just kind of like you're saying,
what a great marriage
opportunities
between Duke and the college.
It is, yeah. So we helped them connect with some retirees that wanted to teach, and so it's been a really neat school, and I've really enjoyed that involvement as well.
Bet. Cars, electric cars. Let's talk about that.
Sure, yeah. So Duke Energy's got a program we've actually presented to the Utilities Commission for approval. It's kind of sitting there for review, but it's a program to invest about $76 million in infrastructure for electric vehicles. I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but the number of electric vehicles is really increasing. I know, when I'm out driving around, I see a lot more Teslas on the road, and a lot more other electric vehicles from other companies, Chevy, Nissan, Toyota. They have a lot of plug-in electric vehicles. And so we've got a program we're offering to provide rebates to customers to put in charging stations inside their homes. The program offers some mass transit.
You put one at home.
Right, yeah, so you can charge your vehicle to help encourage folks. And part of our investment in this is we've kind of set it up as a pilot. So we'd like to learn, what's that going to do to the grid? How much energy is that going to use? The hope is it would be kind of off-peak, so people will be charging their vehicles at night and not adding to the demand of energy during the heat of the day or the early cold mornings, that sort of thing. So, and so we're looking at mass transit and actually having some charging stations that would be public charging stations. Just trying to help get that industry going. So that's in front of the Utilities Commission right now. They've got a lot on their plate that they've been dealing with, but we're hoping they'll have some time to review that request in the near future and help us get that going. There's some to help fleets for businesses, so you could put a charging station in to help you convert some of your fleet vehicles to be all electric or plug-in or hybrid. There's a lot of different varieties, but it's a good opportunity for Duke Energy to sell more energy, and the hope is we sell it off peak when we've got plenty of capacity.
Off peak. Can you share that? What's peak and off? kind
Sure.
of some
So
idea?
you think of peak. So the demand for energy, fluctuates up and down.
Up and down.
Through the day. In the summertime, our peak demand usually is 3 p.m. in the afternoon until about 7 p.m. at night. So, the heat of the day has been going, everybody's air conditioning, and especially about 5 o'clock, people get home, start preparing dinner, maybe they knock their air conditioning settings down a little bit and create a little bit more energy. So that sort of thing adds demand to the system. So for us, we've got to produce the exact amount of energy that our customers are going to use. There's a lot of work being done in storage, and so we're having an opportunity to provide a little bit more storage for energy and batteries. And Duke's got some really cool projects with pump storage, where we actually pump energy up into an upper reservoir and wait till we've got that high peak demand. You can run it back down through the hydroelectric turbines. But
Really?
But at any rate, those peaks in the wintertime, the peak occurs early in the morning. So you think it's been getting cold all night. People get up, start cooking breakfast.
It's in the morning.
Taking hot showers. So 8 a.m., usually 7, 8 a.m. is when we see our winter peaks. And so, we're looking at ways to encourage folks, if you do have an electric vehicle, to charge your vehicle off peak. So, maybe after 7 o'clock at night and before, say, 6 o'clock in the morning. So that's some of our interest in trying to.
Jimmy, tell us about, I want to go back to the chamber.
Sure.
The chamber, we go from 200 to 600 members, depending, like Mount Airy, I think 600. The incredible contributions that chambers make.
Sure.
And the role that, to be part of that, you just get to see some incredible progress and inventions and ideas that people are using, and being a part of the chamber entity, if you will, locally.
Sure, yeah. Chambers of Commerce are the engine, part of the engine. I mean, we think of Duke Energy producing electricity as part of the engine that powers our economy, but Chamber of Commerce is really a great opportunity to bring a lot of key leaders together.
Yeah, well, Linda Cheek, who's been 20-some years here in Wilkes, just an icon.
She has, and she's involved in everything. She gets involved in tourism, and it seems like whenever the community needs something, they turn to the chamber and say, can you get involved? And so Linda has to turn to her board, her chamber board of directors, who are all volunteers. That volunteer their time to come and meet and get involved in the chamber, and so it's a rewarding opportunity. But the chamber provides a place to kind of promote business and to hopefully look to and advocate for business-friendly environments to try to help key leaders, elected officials, and such understand to make the right policies and things that will help our communities thrive and help promote business and keep our, as we think about, the kind of the things that keep us going, creating jobs for people. They've got a job, they've got money to provide for their families. And so, the Chamber of Commerce tries to make sure that we have that environment that is positive for business, and in the end, it helps us all.
When we became involved in WIFM in 2004, the first person that I reached out to Linda Cheek and said, ask her to give me a list of the men and women that make things happen. And so her list was just so helpful that she just quickly said, you want to meet, well, Arnold Lakey was one of them, and just, all the way through. And I shall never forget she did it not because she had to, it's because she wanted to.
Sure.
That's Linda Cheek that we know.
She is an awesome lady. And really a gem and a real asset to Wilkes County and just the general region as well. She
I want to thank Wilkes Communications for this opportunity for me, and that if I could bring people of great value and interest that you have, and interest in people, you have a genuine interest in people, and that I was telling you earlier, you're where you need to be,
Thank you
with
for that.
Duke, and that's a big compliment. So, if you will, your career, your 34 years, and just kind of wrap it up for us, if you will. We're almost to the end of our sharing, and I thank you for being here. But
thanks.
Just how you value that opportunity that Duke has given you to be such a significant part of what's happening.
Sure, yeah. Well, I feel very fortunate to have worked for Duke Energy for so long, and I think my experiences in engineering have put me in a good place where it helps me to be able to get out and explain things to community leaders. And we get lots of questions sometimes. People don't really understand how the system works, and so I've had that background and knowledge, so it helps me do my job. The interesting thing in my career, there are a lot of different career paths. My counterparts, some of them started as a lineman with the company and went back to school and got their college degree. A lot of folks came out of our corporate communications environment. My boss started as a newspaper man and came over and worked in corporate communications for Duke Energy before coming into this role. So it's a position that can take a lot of varied folks, but generally it's like you're saying, somebody that likes people and wants to be involved in the community and is outgoing. And somebody that's willing to learn, and my role lots of times is just finding, if somebody has an issue, I'm going to find quickly who the right person at Duke Energy to respond to that, and hopefully get things brought back on track, or provide the right input or the investment in the community and that sort of thing.
Jimmy Flythe, you are a leader in government and community relations. How about the end with how many people in Duke are on alert today about the hurricane?
Yeah. So everybody at Duke Energy has a storm roll, and so our meteorologists have been watching this Hurricane Dorian for more than a week and kind of giving us alerts. And so over the weekend, a lot of our operations personnel, if they weren't expecting to be directly impacted, they were engaged in trying to identify who our crews were and our personnel that are going to travel to wherever we have damage. It's looking like we might not have as much of an impact here in the Triad and the western part of the state, but if we do, we'll be ready to respond. But we've gotten, I think I saw a note yesterday, 4,000 additional line workers and tree crews from 23 different states and Canada that are either in North Carolina ready to respond or coming to North Carolina. That's in addition to the 5,000 resources that we have available to respond to the storm as well. And that's not including a lot of the folks that'll be answering the phone if we have outages and that sort of thing. We do expect some outages on the coast and maybe a little bit further inland in eastern North Carolina. So, I think in North Carolina, we've got about 13,000 employees. Duke Energy overall is about 29 to 30,000 employees, and so everybody kind of is ready to respond. And we can't send everybody in the Midwest, for example. The Midwest crews went earlier to Florida, and we've been fortunate. It doesn't look like we're going to have the significant impacts that we felt there, and those crews will probably be relocated up to the Carolinas to help respond to whatever we get faced with in North and South Carolina. So our folks do a fantastic job restoring power after a storm and being prepared and just throwing everything but the kitchen sink at getting everybody's power back on. And we really appreciate our customers' patience and understanding. It just takes a while to put it back up when Mother Nature tears everything down.
Jimmy Flythe, thank you for honoring us in countless ways. And I've been looking forward to this, and maybe you'll come do it again.
Sure, enjoyed it.
We know where your heart is.
Well, thank you, Gary. I really appreciate that.
Gary York, people doing good for others. Duke Energy has been highlighted this morning. We've been blessed with one of its heart and soul leaders in this community, and Jimmy Flythe is, when I think of Duke Energy, it's Jimmy. And so he's shared his experience and his hope today, and till we see you again, remember that there's that of God in all of us, and to give and share and care and make a difference in the lives of others. Thank you.